life was like a mountain railroad. You know, as a kid growing up, my bedroom used to have a big window, and it opened in the direction towards a railroad track that was just back at the back end of our property and just a little further. Coming up through the Ivanhoe station. And I remember at nighttime hearing that train come up through that valley, and it was almost like the little engine that said, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I thought I could, I thought I could. I'd hear that thing coming, it would get me awake at night. It was such a soothing sound. That whistle would go, steam would be blowing off. I can't believe I lived long enough to actually hear a steam engine pulling a train. Wow. It was almost like that steam engine pulling that train was calling my name. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and hear that thing. And I'd think to myself, someday I'm gonna get on that train. Going down them tracks. Gonna see what's on the other end of that. And I did. As a 15-year-old boy. I got on at Belleville, Ontario, Canada. Took me on a journey all the way up through northern Ontario to the western provinces. Remember going through Winnipeg. For some unknown reason, I felt pulled to get on that train and go to Western Canada. I'd made some loose-fitting reservations to meet somebody and work on their farm. When I say loose-fitting, when I got off the train in the town of Bigger, Saskatchewan, there was nobody there. There was a horrendous wind going on. A sandstorm was just blowing everything up and down the streets, dirt roads. And I stood there by myself. never quite know what lonely is about until you stand there by yourself. And when you're standing by yourself at a threshold in life, and nobody knows where you really are, and you are there, nobody's seemingly coming to get you, and you're there, and I thought to myself, isn't this something? Why did I ever do this? When suddenly the gentleman I'd made the arrangements with come drifting in about an hour late to pick me up. And I was so intrigued by getting on that train and going to Western Canada. Couldn't put the pieces all together. You ever been there? I felt depression, I felt anxiety, I felt rejection, I felt forgotten. But you know, God knew exactly where I was. And within a few short days of me being there, at 15 years old, God brought Charlotte, my dear wife, across our pathway. I began to realize at that moment that God had a plan that was bigger than me. He said, I have plans for you, plan to prosper you and bless you. And I also began to realize, and have proven it true, that if you take God's best plan for you, it's where you'll find success and happiness. If you try to alter it or change it, or go some other direction. You see, for me, it involved making a commitment to be a preacher. Did not want it. I had other ideas. But when God says, this is what you're going to do, you're not going to be happy till you do what God says. And for God to put Charlotte right there in my pathway, I remember the afternoon that we were having a baptismal service, and her dad asked me to sing, and I sang a song, To the River of Jordan, Our Savior Went One Day. And we read how John the Baptist met him there. And John baptized Jesus in the rushing muddy water. The mighty Spirit of God filled the air. I felt God in an unusual way that afternoon, and I knew I had to tell Charlotte that I was called to preach. And I did tell her, which brought tears to her eyes. She said, well, God called me to be a pastor's wife. And she said, I'm committed to that. In fact, she said, I'll be going to Bible school this fall. I'm like, whoa. I was thinking like I was kind of running away from God, that 2,000-mile trip, and not getting away from home, and that railroad experience. I said I was called to do that. I didn't say I submitted or surrendered or I was gonna. She says, well, Ken, you can do what you feel you have to do for your life. I'll have to do what I feel I have to do for mine. She says, I'm going to Bible college to prepare what God has called me to do, be a pastor's wife. You talked about anxiety and stress. There's a little bit of an upside to that. It's a first cousin sometimes to conviction. Conviction. When God's trying to get your attention and give you direction and to bring you satisfaction. And I kissed her goodbye, and she got on the train. If you can get a picture of this, I used the train to get away from home. She's getting on that very same train to take her 2,000 miles back in the area where I came from to go to college. After a year of floundering and seeing a lot of things go crazy wrong, including one of my friends being seriously killed in the mine right where I worked at 3,200 feet below ground. After having a couple accidents there myself, God finally is still talking to me and saying, how much of this are you going to try to take before you do what I've asked you to do? And I remember I was working in a wheat field, summer fowling in a wheat field during the daytime, and I was driving a tractor, and we were working in the mine at nighttime. And I remember becoming so lonely, convicted, anxious. This is why I'm saying you've got to learn how to discern. There's a bit of that there's a bit of that comes from the Lord by way of conviction and direction and satisfaction and submission. I remember weeping and crying that day, and got off the tractor, knelt in the dirt at a place called Darcy, Saskatchewan, somewhere between Darcy and Fisk. And there I said yes to the Lord and to that call that He had in my life. And I'm glad I made that choice. The point today is, when you're talking about anxiety and stress, it almost has to be diagnosed a little bit. What's behind it? What's causing it? Is it because you're living in fear, living as a result of something somebody's done for you? Or is it God's way of bringing you into a place of submission and direction? I know one thing in closing today. He is the peace that passeth all understanding. And any time that I have found His perfect will, it has brought me an incredible amount of peace and satisfaction. I've had to deal with anxiety and depression many times in life. Always brought on by, I'll take the responsibility for that, brought on by stubbornness and selfishness. But God's a good God and a merciful God. And His mercy is from everlasting to everlasting. And so, I think you can put the puzzles together and see what I'm trying to say today. Sometimes some of that anxiety and some of that stress is taking us somewhere. It's important. It's important. Search that out. God bless, and you have a great day on Rise and Shine.